In this demonstration, I want to show you how to use a logical expression with the conditional operator. It's very similar to writing an if-else expression, but instead it's just going to state the condition and then provide a question mark that gives us a value if true and a value if false. So let's go ahead real quick and let's set up some variables. Okay, so I just pasted these two variables, start and end, and I made start be 0 and end be 10. And we're going to test the condition to see excuse me, if start is equal to 10. Okay, I mean, we could test for a lot of different things, but let's go ahead and start by doing that. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to not just do a test, but we're actually going to end up assigning a variable. We'll call it test. We're going to assign a variable to the result of this expression that we're about to write. Okay, so this is where our first condition is going to go. So here we're going to say, is start equal to end? Okay, and then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to type a space and then a question mark, and that's the conditional operator, and then a space. And what this is doing is saying, okay, is start equal to end, and then whenever it sees the question mark, it knows to look for, okay, well, if the value is true, then we'll just state the start variable. So we'll just say 0. Like, so if start is the same as end, then we'll just state start, because they're the same things. Okay? Otherwise, and that's where we're going to put our colon, we're going to state start through n. So let's say 0 through 10, it would be start through n. Well, how can we write that? Well, we can do a full stop, and then we can have our single quotes with the minus symbol inside, and then we can append it with the end variable. And the reason that we don't want to just write the hyphen right here without the single quotes, we wouldn't want to write start minus end, because then it's actually going to calculate 0 minus 10. All right, and it would give us a value back of negative 10. What we want to do is we want to say, okay, well, start through 10 or 0 through 10. Okay, and if this is kind of hard to read, what you can do is you can find where there are conditions or expressions, and you can go ahead and put parentheses around them so that it's really clear where the condition starts and stops. Okay, so now it's a little bit easier to see that this is the testing condition, and this is the true value, or it's if true, this is the value, and if false, this is the value right here. Okay, so now it's going to do this test, and then it's going to give us either the true or false return, and then it's going to store it inside the variable called test. So now we just want to echo test to the screen so that we can see what in fact it's going to produce. And we can hypothesize that it's going to produce 0 through 10 because start is not equal to end. So this evaluation would test out to be false, therefore it would take the false value. Okay? Alright, so let's save it, test it in Firefox, and we have something called conditional operator here, and we click on it, and of course it says 0 through 10. Okay, so that's how you can use that, and you can use it for like a really simple quick test, and it's kind of a nice thing to do if you have something that's not like really complex, like a else if kind of statement. And what's really great about it is that it's in one line, it's very succinct, and it's very clear. And we can also go ahead and take this to sort of the next level and say, okay, well, start and end really doesn't mean anything, but what if we wanted to do this maybe to come up with a way of doing a copyright that's a dynamic copyright, so that you don't have to constantly worry about going to change your static HTML copyright every single time you want to publish something. It'll always be accurate. So let's do that, where we actually look at the current time and date and year and try to get some information from our server so that we can go ahead and process a useful little tool, a useful little script out so that we can have copyrights in the footer or something. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's get started with the date features. All right, first of all, there's something that you have to do in PHP 5. Well, it's starting with PHP 5, and it's this thing called INI set. And basically, if for some reason your time isn't set properly in your PHP INI file, which is controlled by your server, then it's going to throw an ugly error message. So to prevent that problem from happening, what you need to do is go ahead and always use the INI set, so you can set the time zone for your web page, and then it won't throw any errors. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to pass the first parameter and then the second parameter. Let's fill those things in. The first is we're going to tell it what we're setting. So we're going to set date dot time zone. Okay? And then the second parameter is we're telling it which time zone it's going to be set to. So in our case, let's do America / Los _ Angeles. Okay? And that's going to give us a time zone for Southern California, for instance. Okay, so the next thing that you want to do then is you want to go ahead and let's just echo the date back so that we can see what the date is going to be. And what you want to do for a date is there's actually a function called date. And the date function has a lot of different options, and I'm not going to go through all of them here because a lot of it is just stuff that, quite frankly, people usually have to refer to unless they're doing programming with date all the time. Then a lot of times they forget what the different abbreviations are for different uppercase, lowercase, military time, 12-hour time, etc. So they have to go look it up anyway. But what we're going to do is we're just going to grab the year, okay? And I want you to notice something about grabbing the year is you got to make sure that you put it in single apostrophes, single quotations, so that you don't throw an error. So let's just go ahead and echo back the date. And in fact, we're going to go ahead and just echo a break tag real quick so that we don't run into any single line issues. Now let's go ahead and hit save. And we're going to go back to Firefox. And what we have here is we have the year 2010. It's reporting the current year. And then of course we have our little test that we did down below. Okay, so let's jump back to Dreamweaver. And if you can imagine now how we might implement this information with what we've done down here. So instead of just having a normal start and end integer, what we can do now is we can set the start year. So let's just say the start year is 2010. And the end date is actually going to be set to this year's date. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're actually going to take this and we're going to copy it right there. Okay, so what we're doing essentially is we're setting a beginning date, and then regardless of when the beginning date was, whatever this current year is going to be the end date, because you can't have a copyright in future years. You can only have a copyright up until this year. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this information where it echoed date back to me. And now what we can do is we can look at the same exact test over here, and you'll see that it'll still work. We don't even have to change anything. We could do start. If you wanted to be more explicit, you could say start year or something like that, and you could say, like here, maybe you could say this year if you wanted to. All right. In fact, we can just go ahead really quickly and do that, and then that way it's like really clear exactly what's going on in terms of what it is that we're testing for. And let's change this last one. So we'll say this year. Okay, and we can go ahead and what the heck, we'll even change the name of test. Since it's not just a test, we'll call it copyright. Okay, and we're going to save that and test it out now. Refresh, and you see that it just says 2010 because this year is 2010. Okay, all right, well, if we come back down to Dreamweaver, let's go ahead and let's say that we set the start date at 2008. Now let's see if it still works out. So we'll save, go back to Firefox and hit refresh, and you see now it publishes our copyright year from 2008 to 2010. Okay, let's go ahead and put that into something that looks like, you know, the real deal. And let's take out echo copyright. I'm going to just cut that right now. We're going to cut that out of the PHP. And we're going to come down below the PHP block and we're just going to type in some HTML. And I'm just going to paste it in to save time, but I'm going to explain it. So first of all, we have paragraph tags that are enclosing the entire element. Inside of that, where it says ampersand copy semicolon, this is the HTML entity for the character that's a copyright symbol. All right, because copyright symbol is a special character, so it has to have what's called an HTML entity. And this will actually display not as ampersand COPY semicolon, but it will display as a copyright symbol. All right, now next, always next to a copyright symbol, you always have the year of the copyright. So that's what we're going to put here. We're going to put echo copyright inside a PHP block. And then after that, we're going to put, you know, your name here, whatever you want to put there. And that's going to publish a copyright on the page. Let's save this. And we're going to test it in Firefox. Refresh. And you see we've got copyright symbol 2008 through 2010, and it'd have your name. And so that's how you can create a dynamic copyright just using something simple like the conditional operator in a logical expression. Okay, so that's going to be the end of this tutorial, and I would actually recommend that you go back and re-review this because this is something that you're going to be required to use in your assignments, or at least one of your assignments this semester. So you can also figure out a different way to write it if you want to, but this is a useful way of writing it very succinctly.